Like many other people, I think, in the country, especially after the terrorist attacks of 9/11 and when George Bush and his administration declared his war on terror, I was troubled by what I saw happening in the country. It seemed as if our commitment to civil rights, our commitment to the rule of law, and many of the principles which I believed in, I think many Americans believed were essential to our national character, were being set aside, were being ignored. It became clear to me that what the Bush administration was doing was it was creating a new national story about who we are, which ignored those values and principles on which our nation was founded. We really needed to become aware of what was really happening here, that the Bush administration, in pursuit of its war on terror, was rewriting our history, was in a sense saying that everything that had come before September 11th was meaningless, was of no use and provided no guidance for how we should proceed in the future. So in order to recapture and reclaim our true story of who we are as a people, I felt it was important to begin to look at and at the whole idea of narrative and how that affects people. The other thing that became clear to me was that the Bush administration was able to get Americans to agree to give up civil rights, to agree to the use of torture, to secret detention centers, and to the expenditure of huge amounts of treasure and the lives of thousands of our own men and women, because it was able to keep us in a state of fear and terror. And that actually during the Bush administration, most of the efforts to keep Americans terrorized did not come from Osama bin Laden, it came from the Bush White House. That's where the stoking of the terrorism really occurred. History shows us that when people who are fearful are kept in a state of terror, they can be easily manipulated and controlled by those in power. And when people who are terrorized come to believe that war is going to keep them safe, then they're more willing to suspend good judgment and give their leaders the benefit of the doubt. And when people suspend good judgment and give leaders the benefit of the doubt, most often than not, they can be led to doing things that are contrary to their own values and their own character. The book to me was a real labor of love for our country, for the values on which it stands. My hope is that as people read the book and think about the issues that I'm raising, that they realize that we are not a nation of cowards, that the values that we hold dear are not superficial to what it means to be an American, but are central to them, and that we understand that phrase, which is often used and often misused, that freedom isn't free, that people will begin to understand that the cost of freedom, to live as free people, is not a cost just paid by those in military uniforms who go out overseas and fight in foreign lands. But each and every citizen is called to make even the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. And that freedom is based on a belief about who we really are, that we are not cowards, so we don't torture people to get them to tell us what we want. We are not cowards, so we don't have secret detention centers. That's what other people do who don't cherish freedom, who don't believe in democracy. The rule of law for us is not something we can set aside just because it's inconvenient and because we're frightened. That our forefathers, our foremothers who came to this land, even our revolutionary ancestors, understood that to live as free people, we had to be willing to put our lives on the line. We had to be willing to sacrifice. I remember a generation of Americans who claimed aloud with fervor, live free or die. These were people who understood that freedom was a responsibility, that it came with certain obligations about how we live together collectively, and that people were willing to die in order to live free. I remember patriots who would say, give me liberty or give me death. You know. But now we seem so willing to give up essential liberties for the sake of a little freedom. Esau sold his birthright to his brother for a bowl of porridge. And it seems that Americans have been convinced by the far right and by the neocons, the neoconservatives, to sell their birthright for a bowl of security porridge. It was Benjamin Franklin who said, those who would give up essential freedoms for a little security deserve neither freedom nor security. So we as Americans need to reclaim our true identity, who we are and what we're about. But I also, in thinking about this, in terms of creating an alternative 9/11 narrative that would lead us forward in a way that we could value and treasure and hold on to those things that value the most of us, it seemed to me that we also needed a clearer understanding of peace, because we talk about peace in this country without really being clear about what we mean by peace.